Hi, my name is Ashley Jager, and I'm a senior here at Bloomsburg. My major is social work, and I have a concentration in family, children, and youth. I chose this topic because human trafficking is becoming more and more common around the world. I want people to become more informed about this so they can make a difference also. So, what is human trafficking? According to the Department of Homeland Security, human trafficking is modern day slavery that involves the use of force, fraud, or threatening to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act. Every year, thousands of men, women, and children fall into the hands of traffickers in their own countries and abroad. Almost every country in the world is affected by trafficking. There are three main elements of human trafficking, which are the acts, the means, and the purposes. According to the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime, the act can be defined as what is done, such as recruitment, transportation, transfer, or harboring of persons. The means relates to how it is done, such as use of threat or force, coercion, abduction, fraud, deception, abuse of power or vulnerability, or giving payments or benefits to a person in control of the victim. The purpose can be related to why it is done, such as for the purpose of exploitation, which includes exploiting the prostitution of others, sexual exploitation, forced labor, slavery, or similar practices. According to Atlanta Daily World, there are three main reasons that human trafficking is increasing throughout the world. The first reason is that sexually exploiting women and girls is a big business. A human trafficker can potentially earn 20 times the amount paid for a girl. Unlike drugs and guns, the same girl can be sold multiple times. Poor girls can be found in all corners of the world, even in wealthy countries such as the United States. Once a girl has been scared by her victimizer, such as by being told that she'll be punished if she flees, she will follow the pimp's demands in fear of being punished or killed. The second reason the Atlanta Daily World states that human trafficking is increasing is because the internet is a free item that many people have access to. 76% of transactions for sex with underage girls starts on the internet. A website called Backpage.com is thought to be the largest U.S. forum for sex trafficking of girls. A New York Times article revealed the site is owned by private equity financiers with a 16% stake formerly owned by Goldman Sachs. It sold its shares after the newspaper's inquiry. The internet also allows traffickers to find and befriend girls who reveal through their postings the uniqueness the traffickers are looking for. The third reason that the Atlanta Daily World states that human trafficking is increasing is because diplomats can take advantage of their immunity. Diplomats to this country are allowed to obtain special visas to bring workers from their home country. Some diplomats unfortunately take advantage of this and abuse their workers. After seizing their passports, an abusive diplomat could force workers to perform inappropriate duties for long hours with little or no pay. Several women have been sexually abused under these conditions. Because these individuals have diplomatic immunity, they are not prosecuted. According to the International Criminal Police Organization, there are many forms of human trafficking. The first example is trafficking for sexual exploitation. It states that this form of trafficking affects every region in the world, either as a starting place, transfer, or end country. Men, women, and children from developing countries and from vulnerable parts of society are lured by promises of decent employment into leaving their homes and traveling to what they consider will be a better life. Victims are often provided with false travel documents where they will find themselves forced into sexual slavery, held in inhumane conditions, and live in constant fear. Another form of human trafficking is trafficking for forced labor. It states that victims of this form of trafficking come mainly from developing countries. They are recruited and trafficked using trickery and intimidation and find themselves held in conditions of slavery. Examples of jobs that these men, women, and children could perform are agricultural work, factory work, construction work, or domestic servitude. Another form of human trafficking is trafficking for tissue, cells, and organs. It states that this type of trafficking in humans for the purpose of using their organs, in particular the kidneys, is a rapidly growing field of criminal activity. In many countries, waiting lists for transplants are very long, and criminals have taken this opportunity to exploit the distracted patients and potential donors. In addition, there is also debt bondage, which is another form of human trafficking where an individual is forced to work in order to pay a debt. According to our textbook, there were 4 distinct waves of human sexual trafficking, all of which are manifestations of increasing globalization. The first wave began in the 1970s and was mostly composed of trafficked women from Southeast Asia in Thailand and the Philippines. The second wave started in the early 1980s and involved trafficked women from Africa, particularly in Ghana and Nigeria. The third wave lasted from the 1980s to the 1990s in Latin America and involved trafficked women from Colombia, Brazil, and the Dominican Republic. The last wave mirrors the rapid expansion and growing complexity of globalization. Most of these women are coming from Eastern and Central Europe. The U.S. Department of State explains that forced labor is India's largest trafficking problem. Sometimes inherited from previous generations, men, women, and children are forced to work in brick and rice mills, agriculture, and embroidery factories. The majority of India's trafficking problem is internal, and those who come from the lowest caste system called Dalits are most susceptible. Within India, some are forced to work at jobs such as construction, steel or textile industries, or wire manufacturing for underground cables. Thousands of unregulated work agencies lure adults and children under false promises of employment for sex trafficking or forced labor. According to the U.S. Department of State, the government of India does not fully meet the minimum standards for the removal of trafficking, but it is making considerable efforts to change. The National Crime Records Bureau Crime in India included data on trafficking investigations, prosecutions, and convictions. The data did show efforts to eliminate human trafficking, but reflected a low number of law enforcement action for the scale of trafficking in India. And overall, it showed a low conviction rate. According to the U.S. Department of State, China's internal migrant population is susceptible to trafficking with Chinese men, women, and children. These individuals are subject to forced labor in coal mines and factories, some of which operate illegally and take advantage of negligent government enforcement. There are reports of traffickers targeting children whose parents have migrated to the cities and left them with relatives. Traffickers also target people with developmental disabilities for forced labor and forced begging. It also states that traffickers typically recruit Chinese women and girls within China from rural areas and bring them to urban centers and force them to perform sexual acts. In addition, local gangs recruit victims with false employment opportunities and force them into prostitution. Similarly to Brazil, the government of the People's Republic of China does not fully meet the minimum standards for the elimination of trafficking, but it is making considerable efforts to change. China's government did not show increasing anti-trafficking efforts compared to the previous reporting period, and therefore, China is placed on Tier 2 watch list for the 3rd straight year. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime states that they do offer assistance to the states, not only to help create laws and anti-trafficking strategies, but also to assist them with resources to help apply these new efforts. States can also obtain specific assistance, including the development of local capacity and expertise, as well as functional tools to encourage cross-border cooperation in investigations and prosecutions. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime also explains the law created in 2000 called Protocol to Prevent, Suppress, and Punish Trafficking in Persons, especially Women and Children, marked a major milestone in international efforts to stop human trafficking. A vast majority of states have now signed and approved this protocol. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, with financial support from the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, has set in motion a global initiative to fight human trafficking. The process, formally launched in London on March 26, 2007, is designed to have a long-term impact, which is to create a turning point in the worldwide fight against human trafficking. After discussing how horrible human trafficking is, resolutions need to be made worldwide to combat this issue. There are many ways you can make a difference in human trafficking. You do not have to live in the United States to make a difference. For starters, you can learn the signs of human trafficking so you can help identify a potential victim. Not only could you participate in human trafficking awareness, but also educators, federal employees, first responders, and law enforcement officials can also participate. You and your friends can participate in anti-trafficking efforts in your nearby community or even globally. Also, you could begin to write letters to local or state government officials to let them know you are interested in this topic and how you can help. Another way to resolve human trafficking is by hosting a fundraiser and donating the profits to an anti-trafficking organization locally or globally. You could also help the survivors fight back by providing them with assistance. There are many other ways you can help fight this battle, but these are just a few of the little things you can do that will have a huge impact. If you or anyone you know is believed to be a victim of human trafficking, please call the National Human Trafficking Hotline right now. 1-888-373-7888. Thank you for watching my presentation on human trafficking. I hope you have enjoyed and learned a lot. Here are the references I have used throughout my research.